Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. You've had an opportunity to review the videos that we've gone over. You've given yourself a little bit of a chance to look at your stash, how you're organizing it, putting your color combinations, getting your patterns, getting ready to start knitting. It's fun when you have all of these basics that don't belong to any specific knitting machine. No matter what your experience is, they're applicable. You have all the information that you have need of to use your knitting machine in the best way possible so that you can create those knits that you really like. The sweater that I'm wearing is a rectangle with a hole in the center for me to have a neckline, and the neckline on the front is rounded. This rolls, so I just let it roll because that's part of this. Anytime knit is going to do something, you just use it as a design element. The other side on my sweater, if I were to turn this around, is a V-neck. So whatever I'm wearing or however I'd like to wear it, it gives me the opportunity to enjoy this particular sweater. So not necessarily, if you're not necessarily into swatches, then one of the things that you want to do are knit rectangles so that you can actually wear them, have something fun as a result of your effort. Your swatching measurements will come off of that rectangle, so you don't have to worry about it. Remember, I told you that if you unknit it and reknit it, you have to be very cautious about how you put that back into your garment, because the reknitted yarn will knit up differently than the yarn that has never been through the machine. So you can put it under your arm, you can put it on the lower back, you can put it on the back top yoke, kind of give it a different impact or a different effect. There are lots of ways to use it, but when you're working with these things, it's important for you to understand the characters of the yarn, how they are behaving. Now today we're going to actually talk about swatches. I know, you don't like that word, but we're going to talk a little bit about them, and I'm going to give you a suggestion about how you can move forward to have those so that they're working in your favor. This is going to be our PDF for today that we're looking at. This PDF is going to show you a lot of information about where you are working with your swatch. Be sure you measure how much your yarn is going to stretch. Some yarns stretch in the lengthwise direction, but not in the widthwise direction. Others are just stretching in both ways, so you have a four-way stretch rather than a two-way stretch. So you must know that information as you go forward to do your garments, because you don't want them to be growing in a way that is not going to be something that you can use. Funny story, very short, but I will tell you about a time when I had knit a number of short tops. They had a fitted waist in them. They were just absolutely adorable, sold extremely well, and my customers really liked them. So I decided that I would like to try with one of my yarns. I would like to try to see if I could knit a dress so I could have a skirt. So I knit the piece. I got the skirt length that I wanted. I had the inset for the waist where it brought the shaping in around my waist. Went on about finishing my sweater. Well, the first time that I wore that sweater, I was out for a short period of time, so I didn't really notice anything different. But the second time I wore the sweater, I wore it where I was going to be gone for most of the day. So by 2 hours into my day, the skirt was 2 inches longer. By 4 hours into my day, it was 4 inches longer. By 6 hours into my day, it was 8 inches longer. By the time I got ready to finish my events of that particular day, I had a long dress. Now, when I washed it, it came right back up to shape, but I just knew that when I was going to wear that particular garment, it was going to be for something that was a short appointment where I was not going to have to be encountering the skirt growing all afternoon, early evening long. It was pretty funny, and I don't think anybody really noticed because nobody ever said anything to me. But I just had such a kick out of what was happening. I laughed a lot about my growing skirt. So you want to avoid those kinds of situations, not have to have that type of thing. So swatching is a really important thing for you to do. So when you're determining the width of the piece, you can refer to the number of stitches in the pattern diagram. When making your swatch, knit at least 10 rows in pattern before and after marking the rows that you'll be measuring. So in this particular instance of this swatch that's on this blocking board, I have 10 rows of the pattern, 2 rows of contrast, 60 rows of the pattern, 2 rows of contrast, 10 more rows back in the pattern. Then I have marked so that I can measure between the white tufts that you see. I can measure between those, and then I also then can measure between the 2 white rows. So that gives me an excellent example. You will see on the bottom corner, you will see 7 holes. So that meant that the tension for this particular yarn was set on the knitting machine that I used to do this swatch was 7 was the tension. So let's move on to the next section of this. So now you're going to measure between the white line, the 2 rows of opposite color, doesn't matter whether it's white or what it is. You just want 2 totally different ones that are really contrast so you can see it. So you're going to measure between those 2, then you're going to measure across. So that gives you then the distance of the swatch. Write down the information on your machine journal page so you can attach the swatch to that page and determine the number of rows stitches that you need to get a finished knit so you can start your project. If you need a knitting journal, you'll be able to record all of those things. So the next time you have used your wraps per inch, if you haven't gotten that yet, in one of the units, there is a PDF download for wraps per inch. If you have any yarn that is the same size that would knit up similarly to this because of the gauge that you're getting on your wraps per inch, then you can start really quickly. If you don't know where you're starting from, you will take a long time just getting all these minuscule details taken care of. By the time you actually sit down to knit, you'll only have a few minutes to do that. So log all these things, record them, be sure then you have that information at your fingertips when you want to use it. Now we talked yesterday about seeing what was on the front of your swatch, seeing what is on the back of your swatch. So when you are going to be working with any pattern, if it knit up your swatch, see what happens on the front, see what happens on the back. I recommend that you sit down, take a couple of contrasting colors of yarn, that you sit down and that you do 30 needles in, 30 needles wide, 50 rows long to separate each one of those sections with a solid color so that you can decide how much stretch it's going to have, what it's going to do, how it's going to behave. Just keep all of this in a swatch. Do mark it though. You see the tag that's laying there on the left side of your screen as it's facing you. You want to put all your details. What stitch pattern you used, what yarn you used, what tension you used. If there's any particular things that you need to know about that yarn, that will give you then all the information that you need to be able to determine how is your swatch going to behave, how much is it going to stretch, is it going to stretch lengthwise, widthwise, or in both directions, what is the pattern on the back. So like in the collar of the white jacket yesterday, that wrong side of the knitting is going to turn back so that it becomes the collar on the jacket. So you have to like what's on the back of whatever your patterns are knitting up. Again, this is whatever machine you have. Again, it doesn't make any difference. If your machine does patterns, what you're going to do is just go through your book, set up your pattern, 30 needles wide, 50 rows long, separate with a solid color so that you can decide that what you're seeing is something that you would like or not. Now, if you find a pattern, save the pattern in the middle. We're going to use the pattern in the middle for the main body of the garment. Does the back of that look like the pattern on the top? Well, if it does, that gives you a really nice contrast. When you have that collar turned back, it will work very nicely for you. So be sure to just kind of have an idea of how your yarns are going to behave. Block them. Be sure that you are putting all your things together. Have that information in some type of a journal so that you can start really quickly. So when you do have a few minutes in it, you can just grab your yarn, load up your machine. You already have your pattern, you already have your information that you have need of, or can you knock out some rows of knitting if you do it that way? If you start from scratch, you have to go find your yarn, you have to figure out what its tension is, you have to do all the stuff that we normally don't enjoy doing. And then when you actually get all that gathered together, you have no time to knit. So do this preparation in advance. Keep track. If you need to, you can pin a note onto your cone so that you know exactly how many wraps per inch it is, and how it knits up, so that you can use that quickly, easily, and have more fun with your knitting. We want to see yummy, yummy, yummy things jumping off those needles, and have fun for you to wear, have fun gifts for you to be able to give for the holidays. So that's what we're covering today. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy knitting.